You know what they say about perfect marriages? They're like unicorns. Everyone talks about them, but nobody's actually seen one. I should have figured that out sooner, but I was too busy fixing other people's broken electronics to notice my own life was shorting out. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Dean Bloom. Wait, scratch that. David Miller. Yeah, that sounds more like a guy who repairs circuit boards for a living and drinks beer from cans instead of bottles. I'm 42, built like a retired boxer because I used to be one, and I fix computers and phones in a shop that smells like solder and disappointment. My wife Samantha, Sam to her friends, that witch to her enemies, is a corporate lawyer who makes 3 times what I do and never lets me forget it. She's got the kind of sharp beauty that cuts you if you get too close, all angles and ambition wrapped in designer suits that cost more than my monthly rent. The funny thing about betrayal is how it sneaks up on you. 1 minute you're living your ordinary life, thinking your biggest problem is whether to have pizza or Chinese takeout for dinner, and the next minute you're staring at your wife's iPad, watching your entire world collapse in real time. It was a Tuesday night in October, the kind of evening where the air smells like dying leaves and false promises. I was in my workshop. Okay, fine, it's just the garage, but workshop sounds more dignified, trying to resurrect a laptop that had taken a dive off a college kid's dorm room desk. Sam's iPad was charging on my workbench, and when a notification popped up, I glanced over without thinking. Group chat. Daddy's girls with 3 participants. The preview text made my blood freeze. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again, Daddy. Last night was incredible. Now I'm not proud of what I did next, but curiosity killed more than just the cat. It murdered my marriage, too. I opened that chat, and what I found there was enough evidence to convict my wife of first-degree adultery with extreme prejudice. Photos, videos, messages that would make a sailor blush and a priest reach for holy water. All featuring my loving wife Sam and some muscle-bound pretty boy named Matt, who apparently ran a boutique gym downtown and had the vocabulary of a horny teenager. The best part? The third person in the chat was Janelle, Sam's best friend since law school, cheering them on like some kind of perverted cheerleader. Get it, girl, and you deserve this, peppered between Sam's detailed descriptions of what she and Jim Boy had been doing in his luxury apartment. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, scrolling through months of messages, watching my marriage decompose in high-definition color. Sam had been feeding this guy money, my money, our money, buying him clothes, paying for his crypto investments, even covering his rent when his business hit rough patches. The garage suddenly felt too small, like the walls were closing in. I needed air. I needed space. I needed a drink. Hell, I needed a whole bottle. But first, I needed to see this train wreck with my own eyes. I grabbed my jacket and keys, left the iPad exactly where I'd found it, and headed for the door. If Sam asked where I was going, I'd tell her I was meeting Frank at Murphy's bar. It wouldn't even be a lie. I'd stop by and see my old friend after I finished conducting some field research. The drive downtown gave me time to think, which was probably a mistake. My brain kept cycling through the same questions. How long had this been going on? How many people knew? Was I the only idiot in town who didn't see what was happening right under my nose? I found Sam's car in the parking lot of Skyline, one of those rooftop bars where drinks cost $20 and come with a side of pretension. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see her sitting at a corner table, leaning across the table toward a guy who looked like he'd been carved out of protein powder and steroids. Matt the trainer was everything I wasn't. Young, pretty, and stupid enough to think sleeping with a married woman was a good career move. He had that artificially perfect look that comes from spending 4 hours a day in the gym and the other 20 thinking about spending 4 hours a day in the gym. I watched them for maybe 10 minutes, taking photos with my phone. Sam's hand on his arm, his hand on her thigh. The way she threw her head back and laughed at something he said, the same laugh she used to give me back when we first started dating, before law school turned her into someone who measured everything in billable hours and social status. That's when I made my first move. I walked into that bar like I owned the place, which was easier than you'd think since I'd actually done some electrical work there 6 months earlier and knew the manager. I ordered a beer at the bar, loud enough for Sam to hear my voice if she was paying attention, then turned around and pretended to notice her for the first time. "Sam, honey, what are you doing here? I thought you were working late at the office." The look on her face was priceless. Pure panic mixed with the desperate calculation of someone trying to figure out how much trouble they're in. Matt, meanwhile, looked like a deer caught in headlights, if deer wore tank tops and had biceps bigger than their brains. "David, we were just... This is Matt, he's a client. We're discussing his legal situation." "Legal situation?" I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. "What kind of legal trouble are you in, Matt?" The kid stammered something about a contract dispute with his gym, but I wasn't really listening. I was too busy watching Sam's face, memorizing every micro-expression, every tell that I'd been too blind to see before. "Well, don't let me interrupt," I said, pulling out my phone. "Mind if I get a picture? Sam never brings me to meet her clients. This is exciting." Before either of them could object, I snapped a photo of the two of them sitting way too close together, Sam's hand still resting on Matt's arm like she'd forgotten it was there. "Beautiful couple. Beautiful evening for a business meeting," I said, then turned to the bartender. "Hey, could you send a round of your most expensive champagne to table 12? Tell them it's from the husband who's so proud of his wife's dedication to client service." I left before they could respond, but not before I heard Sam hiss something angry at Matt and saw him knock over his drink trying to stand up. The drive home was interesting. My phone buzzed with text after text from Sam, angry, then pleading, then angry again. I didn't read them. I had other plans. Back in my garage, I opened Sam's iPad again and took screenshots of everything. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that my wife was living a double life on my dime. Then I did something that probably wasn't mature, but felt absolutely necessary. I posted the photo I'd taken at the bar to the neighborhood Facebook group. "Spotted at Skyline tonight. Local attorney Samantha Miller providing very personal legal services to her client. So inspiring to see professionals who really care about their work. Dedicated service. To marriage goals. Legal Eagle." Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Our neighbors, Sam's colleagues, even some people I didn't recognize, all weighing in on my wife's extracurricular activities. The suburban gossip network had officially gone nuclear. I was just settling in to watch the fireworks when my 17-year-old daughter Emily walked into the garage, phone in hand, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Dad, we need to talk." Emily had her mother's sharp features but my stubborn streak, which made for an interesting combination. She was smart, too smart for her own good sometimes, with the kind of cynical worldview that comes from growing up in a house where love was rationed and arguments were served daily. "Let me guess," I said, not looking up from the iPad. "Your mother called you." "She's freaking out, like, seriously losing her mind." Emily perched on my workbench, careful not to disturb my tools. "She says you're trying to ruin her life." "I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just sharing interesting observations about professional dedication." Emily snorted, a sound she'd inherited from me. "Dad, I'm not stupid. I know what's going on." That made me look up. "What do you know?" "I know Mom's been sneaking around for months. I know she's been buying expensive stuff for some guy who isn't you. And I know you just nuked her reputation on social media like some kind of suburban Hiroshima." I had to admire her directness. "And how do you feel about that?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her phone. "Honestly? Part of me wants to high-five you. Mom's been treating you like garbage for years, and everyone just pretends it's normal because she makes good money. But she's still my mom. And if you destroy her, it destroys me too. People at school are already talking about it. Jenny Morrison's mom shared your post with crying, laughing emojis. That hit me harder than I'd expected. I'd been so focused on my own anger that I hadn't thought about the collateral damage. Emily didn't choose to have cheating parents, and she shouldn't have to pay for our failures. I'm sorry, kiddo, I didn't think… Yes, you did. Her voice was sharp but not unkind. You thought about it, and you decided Mom deserved it more than I deserved privacy. And you know what? You're probably right. Before I could respond, she pulled up something on her phone and showed me the screen. It was a video, clearly shot from the restaurant's window, showing my entire confrontation with Sam and Matt. I wasn't the only one there tonight, Dad. I was having dinner with friends across the street when I saw you go in. I filmed the whole thing. My stomach dropped. Emily, relax. I'm not going to post it. But I could, and that scares Mom more than your Facebook post ever will. The kid was learning to play chess while the adults were still figuring out checkers. I wasn't sure if I should be proud or terrified. What do you want? I asked. I want you to be smart about this. If you're going to war with Mom, do it right. Don't just burn everything down and hope for the best. She had a point. My Facebook post had been satisfying but impulsive. If I was really going to make Sam face consequences for her choices, I needed to think strategically. Any suggestions? Emily grinned, and for a moment she looked exactly like I did at her age, hungry for justice and smart enough to get it. First, you need to understand who you're really fighting. It's not just Mom and her gym rat boyfriend. It's Janelle, too. Janelle? What does she have to do with this? Everything. She's the one who introduced Mom to Matt. She's the one who's been covering for her, making up stories about girls' nights and work trips. And she's the one who's been feeding Mom advice about how to hide money and protect her assets. That was new information, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. Janelle had been coming to our house for Sunday dinners for 3 years. She'd been Emily's honorary aunt, my wife's best friend, and apparently the architect of my marriage's destruction. How do you know all this? Emily held up her phone. Because I'm 17 and invisible. Adults talk around me like I'm furniture. Plus, Janelle's not as smart as she thinks she is. She left her purse here last week and her phone kept buzzing. When I handed it to her, I saw enough to know she's not just Mom's friend, she's her accomplice. The pieces were starting to fit together. Janelle was a real estate agent, which meant she knew about property values, asset protection, and how to hide money. She was also recently divorced herself, which meant she had experience with the kind of warfare Sam was probably planning. There's something else, Emily said. I think Janelle has a thing for Mom. What do you mean? I think she's in love with her, like romantically. The way she looks at Mom, the way she gets jealous when Mom talks about other people, even you. I think this whole thing with Matt is Janelle's way of breaking up your marriage so she can have Mom to herself. That was a twist I hadn't seen coming. If Emily was right, then this wasn't just about Sam having an affair. It was about Janelle manipulating the situation for her own purposes. You think Janelle set this up? I think Janelle saw an opportunity and took it. Mom was unhappy, you guys were fighting more, and along comes this pretty boy trainer who makes Mom feel young and desired. Janelle probably encouraged it, maybe even helped arrange their meetings. I sat back in my chair, trying to process this new information. If Janelle was the puppet master, then Sam might be as much a victim as I was, which didn't excuse her choices, but it changed the game entirely. So, what do you suggest? Emily's smile was pure predator. We give them what they want, let them think they're winning, and then we destroy all 3 of them at once. The kid was definitely my daughter. We spent the next hour planning. Emily showed me more evidence she'd gathered, photos of Janelle's car at Matt's apartment, screenshots of social media posts that didn't match the timeline Sam had given me, even a recording she'd made of Janelle coaching Sam on how to hide assets during a phone call. "I've been documenting this for months," Emily admitted. "I kept hoping Mom would come to her senses, but she just kept getting deeper into it." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was hoping I wouldn't have to choose sides. But after tonight, after seeing how they looked at you like you were some kind of inconvenient obstacle." She shrugged. "I choose you, Dad. You're not perfect, but at least you're honest." That meant more to me than she could possibly know. By the time we finished planning, it was almost midnight. Sam still wasn't home, which meant she was probably at Matt's place, doing damage control or celebrating my supposed stupidity. Either way, she was making my next move easier. "Get some sleep," I told Emily. "Tomorrow's going to be interesting." "What are you going to do?" I smiled, and this time it did reach my eyes. "I'm going to be the husband Sam deserves." The next morning, Sam came home looking like she'd spent the night in a blender set to guilt and panic. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup was smeared, and she had the kind of frantic energy that comes from staying up all night trying to figure out how screwed you are. I was in the kitchen, making coffee and eggs like it was any other Wednesday morning. The domestic normalcy seemed to throw her off balance, which was exactly what I was going for. "David, we need to talk." "Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Coffee?" She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Did you hear what I said?" "I heard you. You want to talk. I'm listening." I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, the picture of casual attention. "About last night." "What about it? You were having a business meeting with a client. Very dedicated of you, working so late." The sarcasm wasn't lost on her. Sam's jaw tightened, and I could see her lawyer brain kicking into gear, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much damage she needed to control. "That Facebook post was completely inappropriate." "Was it? I thought it was supportive. I'm proud of my wife's work ethic." "David, stop playing games. You know what you saw." I took a sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch. This was a technique I'd learned from watching Sam prepare for trials. Sometimes the best weapon is just letting the other person talk themselves into a corner. "What I saw," I said finally, "was my wife having dinner with a client. If there was something inappropriate about that, maybe you should explain what I missed." She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing the trap. If she admitted there was something inappropriate about her dinner with Matt, she'd be confessing to the affair. If she insisted it was innocent, then my Facebook post was just a loving husband bragging about his wife's dedication. "The neighbors are talking," she said instead. "Let them talk. We have nothing to hide, right?" Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started ringing with the kind of persistence that meant someone was having an emergency. "You should probably get that," I said. "Sounds important." Sam glanced at the caller ID and went pale. "It's my boss." "Better answer it. Wouldn't want to keep a client waiting." She stepped into the living room to take the call, but I could hear every word. Apparently, someone had forwarded my Facebook post to the senior partners at Sam's law firm, along with some creative interpretations of what personal legal services might entail. Her boss was not amused. The conversation was short and brutal. Sam came back into the kitchen looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "Happy now?" she snapped. "About what? Did something happen at work?" "You know exactly what happened. My reputation is ruined because of your little stunt." I set down my coffee cup and looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in months. When had she become this person? When had my wife turned into someone who could lie to my face and then blame me for the consequences of her own choices? "Sam, I posted a picture of you having dinner with a client and made a joke about your work ethic. If that ruined your reputation, maybe the problem isn't with my post." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the exact moment she realized I knew. Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, anger, and finally, cold calculation. Fine. You want to do this the hard way? We'll do it the hard way. She stormed out of the kitchen, and I heard her on the phone again, this time calling Janelle. The conversation was hushed, but I caught enough words to know they were planning their next move. I wasn't worried. Emily and I had planned for this. An hour later, I was at Murphy's bar, sitting across from Frank Morrison, my oldest friend and the best source of information in a 50-mile radius. Frank had been a cop for 20 years before a knee injury forced him into early retirement and behind the bar. He still had contacts in every department that mattered, and he knew everyone's business before they knew it themselves. "You look like hell," Frank said, sliding a beer across the bar. "Feel worse. Sam's cheating on me." Frank didn't look surprised, which told me everything I needed to know about how obvious this had been to everyone except me. "The trainer?" he asked. "You knew?" "Dave, everyone knew. The question is what you're going to do about it." I took a long pull from my beer and looked around the bar. It was early afternoon, so the place was mostly empty except for a couple of regulars who were probably working on their fourth or fifth drink of the day. "I need information," I said. "What kind of information?" "The kind that helps me understand who I'm really fighting." Frank's expression sharpened. He'd always been good at reading people, which made him a good cop and an even better bartender. "Talk to me." I told him everything: the affair, Janelle's involvement, Emily's theory about the manipulation, and my suspicion that this was bigger than just a cheating wife. Frank listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making notes on a napkin. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You want my professional opinion?" he asked finally. "That's why I'm here. Your daughter's right. This smells like a setup. Janelle's been divorced for what, 2 years? And suddenly she's your wife's best friend and biggest supporter in blowing up her marriage? That's not friendship. That's strategy." "Strategy for what?" "Think about it. Sam makes good money, right? She's got assets, property, a successful career. If Janelle can break up your marriage and position herself as Sam's closest confidant, maybe even more than that, she's looking at a pretty comfortable situation." It made sense in a twisted way. Janelle had lost half her assets in her own divorce. Attaching herself to Sam, especially a newly single Sam with money and emotional vulnerability, would solve a lot of problems. "There's something else," Frank said. "I made some calls about your boy Matt. And he's not as clean as he pretends to be. 3 arrests for assault, all dismissed when the victim suddenly decided not to press charges. 2 restraining orders from ex-girlfriends, both dropped after mysterious payments. And his gym, it's hemorrhaging money, has been for months. So he needs Sam's financial support. More than that, I think he's being paid to seduce her. The timeline's too convenient, and guys like Matt don't usually go after married women unless there's a significant upside." The picture was getting clearer and uglier. Sam wasn't just having an affair, she was being manipulated by 2 people who saw her as a meal ticket. "What would you do?" I asked. Frank smiled, the kind of smile that had probably terrified criminals back in his cop days. "I'd give them exactly what they want. Let them think they're winning right up until the moment I destroyed them all." "Sounds familiar." Emily suggested the same thing. "Smart kid. She gets that from you." I hoped he was right. We spent another hour planning, with Frank sharing insights from his police days about how to gather evidence, document everything, and stay within the bounds of the law while making my enemies' lives as miserable as possible. "The key," Frank said, "is patience. Let them make mistakes. People like this always get overconfident, and overconfident people do stupid things." I was about to respond when my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Mom and Janelle just left the house with boxes. I think they're moving her stuff out." Game on. I got home to find Sam loading boxes into Janelle's SUV while Janelle supervised from the driveway, looking like a general directing a strategic retreat. Emily was watching from her bedroom window, occasionally taking photos with her phone. "Going somewhere?" I asked, walking up the driveway with my hands in my pockets. Sam didn't look up from the box she was carrying. I'm staying with Janelle for a while, until we figure out what we're doing. We? I thought this was about you and your client relationship with Matt. Janelle stepped forward, and I got my first good look at her in this new context. She was attractive in a sharp, predatory way, with the kind of confidence that comes from always having an angle. Looking at her now, knowing what I knew, I could see the possessiveness in how she positioned herself between Sam and me. Sam needs space to think, Janelle said, away from your manipulative behavior. I laughed, which seemed to throw them both off balance. Manipulative? That's rich, coming from you. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, I think you know exactly what it means. But please, don't let me interrupt. You two have important work to do. I walked into the house, leaving them to finish their packing. Emily met me in the kitchen, her phone in her hand, and a satisfied smile on her face. Please tell me you got all of that, I said. Every word, plus some interesting audio from when they thought you couldn't hear them. She played back a recording of Sam and Janelle discussing their strategy. The conversation was enlightening and damning. Told you he'd react like this, Janelle was saying. Men like David can't handle losing control. Maybe we're moving too fast, Sam replied. He seemed different this morning, calmer. That's when they're most dangerous. Trust me, I've been through this. The best thing you can do is get out now, establish residency somewhere else, and let the lawyers handle the rest. What about Matt? What about him? He served his purpose. Once the divorce is final, you won't need him anymore. Emily paused the recording. Want to hear the best part? She skipped ahead to another section. Sure David doesn't suspect anything about the money? How could he? He never pays attention to the finances. I've been moving assets for months, and he hasn't noticed a thing. Good. The Cayman account is safe, and the property transfers won't show up in any database he'd think to check. My blood went cold. They've been hiding assets. Gets better, Emily said, skipping to another section. Matt's getting impatient. He wants more money. Tell him to wait. Once I'm divorced, he'll get his final payment and disappear. David will never know he was paid to seduce me. There it was. Confirmation of everything Frank and Emily had suspected. Matt wasn't just Sam's lover. He was a hired gun, paid to destroy my marriage so Janelle could swoop in and claim the pieces. How long have you been recording them? I asked. Weeks. I started when I noticed Janelle was here all the time, always whispering with Mom, always asking questions about you and your work. It felt wrong. Smart kid. Smarter than her parents, apparently. What do you want to do with this? Emily's smile was pure vengeance. I want to post it everywhere. Let the whole world know what kind of people they really are. Not yet. We need to be strategic about this. I called Frank and asked him to come over. Within an hour, we had a war council in my garage, me, Emily, and Frank, planning the systematic destruction of 3 people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. First things first, Frank said, listening to Emily's recordings. This is evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and asset manipulation. But if you go to the police now, they'll lawyer up and disappear the evidence. So what do? We let them finish digging their own graves. Sam thinks she's being clever, but she's leaving a paper trail a mile wide. Every asset she hides, every lie she tells, every payment to Matt, it's all evidence we can use later. Later when? Frank's smile was predatory. When we expose all 3 of them at once, in the most public, humiliating way possible. Emily clapped her hands. I love it. What's the plan? We spent the next 2 hours working out the details. Frank would use his contacts to track the hidden assets and gather evidence of the conspiracy. Emily would continue documenting Sam and Janelle's activities, and I would play the role of the clueless, heartbroken husband, letting them think they were winning while we prepared for the final confrontation. There's one more thing, Frank said as we were wrapping up. We need to flip Matt. What do you mean? I mean we need to make him an offer he can't refuse. Right now, He's being paid by Janelle to seduce your wife. But what if we paid him more to tell the truth? It was risky, but it could work. Matt was a mercenary, not a true believer. If we could convince him that his current employers were about to throw him under the bus anyway, he might be willing to switch sides. How do we approach him? Leave that to me, Frank said. I know how to talk to guys like Matt. That evening, after Sam and Janelle had finished moving her stuff out, I sat in my empty house and tried to process everything that had happened. 48 hours ago, I'd been a guy with a failing marriage. Now I was at the center of a conspiracy involving fraud, manipulation, and betrayal on a scale I never could have imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam. I'm sorry it came to this. I hope we can be civil for Emily's sake. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to figure out how to respond. Part of me wanted to unleash everything I knew, to tell her exactly what I thought of her and her friends and their pathetic little scheme. Instead, I wrote back, of course, I just want what's best for our family. It was true in a way. I did want what was best for our family. I just had a different definition of best than Sam did. Her response came quickly. Thank you for understanding. I know this is hard. Take care of yourself, I replied. I'll be in touch. I set the phone down and smiled. Sam thought she was winning. Janelle thought she was pulling the strings. Matt thought he was getting paid to destroy a marriage. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks passed in a strange kind of peace. Sam stayed at Janelle's house, playing the role of the wronged wife who'd been driven out by her unreasonable husband. I played the role of the confused, hurt spouse who just wanted his family back together. Emily played the role of the conflicted teenager, torn between her parents. We were all lying, but Sam and Janelle didn't know that. During those 3 weeks, Frank worked his magic. His police contacts helped him trace the hidden assets, offshore accounts, property transfers, even a safe deposit box that Sam had opened in Janelle's name. The paper trail was extensive and incredibly stupid, the kind of thing that happens when smart people think they're dealing with someone dumb. Emily continued her surveillance, documenting every meeting between Sam, Janelle, and Matt. She'd gotten good at being invisible, showing up at the same restaurants and coffee shops, always with a friend or a book, never seeming to pay attention while recording everything, and I played my part perfectly. I sent Sam sad, confused texts about missing her. I asked mutual friends if they thought we could work things out. I even called Janelle once, asking if she thought Sam would be willing to try marriage counseling. Janelle's response was particularly enlightening. David, I think you need to accept that Sam has outgrown this marriage. She needs someone who can match her intellectually and professionally. Someone like Matt? I asked, injecting just the right amount of hurt confusion into my voice. I wouldn't know about that, Janelle said, but I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. I just think Sam deserves to be happy. The beauty of it was that every conversation, every text, every interaction was being documented. Frank had taught me how to record calls legally, and Emily had become an expert at capturing conversations without being noticed. Meanwhile, Frank was working on Matt. It took 2 weeks, but he finally managed to arrange a meeting at a gym across town, posing as someone interested in personal training services. Kid's dumber than a box of rocks, Frank reported after their first session. But he's getting nervous. Janelle's been pushing him to escalate things with Sam, but he's starting to realize he's in over his head. How so? He thought this was just about seducing a married woman for money. He didn't realize he was part of a larger fraud scheme. When I started asking casual questions about his business investments and his real estate opportunities, he got spooked. Think he'll flip? Give me another week. Frank was right. After a few more carefully orchestrated encounters, Matt agreed to meet with us privately. The meeting took place at a diner outside of town, the kind of place where nobody paid attention to anyone else's business. Matt looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usual cocky demeanor was gone, replaced by the nervous energy of someone who'd realized he was way out of his league. I want out, he said, without preamble. This whole thing has gotten too complicated. What whole thing? I asked, playing dumb. Don't act like you don't know. Janelle hired me to seduce your wife. It was supposed to be simple. Make Sam fall for me, break up your marriage, collect my money, and disappear. And what went wrong? Matt ran his hands through his hair. Everything. Janelle's obsessed with your wife, like creepy obsessed. And Sam's not just having an affair. She's moving money around, hiding assets, planning to screw you over in ways I didn't sign up for. What kind of ways? She's been transferring property to shell companies that Janelle set up. They're planning to claim you were abusive, get a restraining order, and take everything. Janelle's got it all mapped out. Frank and I exchanged glances. This was even worse than we'd suspected. Here's the thing, Matt, Frank said, leaning forward. You're already in it up to your neck. Conspiracy to commit fraud, asset manipulation, maybe even extortion, depending on how they play the abuse angle. You're looking at serious prison time. Matt went pale. I never agreed to any of that. I was just supposed to sleep with her. Doesn't matter what you agreed to. You took money to participate in a scheme to defraud David of his assets. That makes you a co-conspirator. I watched Matt process this information, seeing the exact moment he realized how screwed he was. What do you want? He asked. We want the truth, I said. All of it. Every conversation with Janelle, every instruction she gave you, every payment you received. We want documentation of everything. And if I cooperate? Frank smiled. If you cooperate, and if your information helps us stop this before it goes any further, maybe we can work something out. Maybe you made some bad choices, but you're not really a bad guy. And if I don't? If you don't, then when this all comes out, and it will come out, you'll be standing there with your dick in your hand, holding the bag for everything Janelle and Sam have done. Matt was quiet for a long moment, staring at his coffee. Finally, he looked up. What do you need me to do? The next week was a flurry of activity. Matt, now working for us, started documenting everything. He recorded his conversations with Janelle, photographed documents she'd given him, and provided detailed accounts of every instruction he'd received. The picture that emerged was damning. Janelle had been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd identified Sam as a target, a successful woman in an unhappy marriage, and had systematically worked to position herself as Sam's closest friend and confidant. The seduction was just one part of a larger plan. Janelle had been encouraging Sam to hide assets, to document fictional instances of emotional abuse, and to prepare for a divorce that would leave me with nothing while positioning Janelle as Sam's savior and new partner. She's been playing the long game, Frank observed as we reviewed the evidence. This isn't just about money. It's about completely destroying your life and taking everything you've built. Emily, who'd been quietly listening to our planning sessions, finally spoke up. When do we destroy them? Frank and I looked at each other. We'd been building toward this moment for weeks, gathering evidence, documenting crimes, preparing for the confrontation that would end this once and for all. Soon, I said. Very soon. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Emily brought me the news on a Friday afternoon, practically vibrating with excitement. They're planning something big tomorrow night, she said. I heard Janelle on the phone with her lawyer. They're going to file for a restraining order against you on Monday, claiming you've been threatening and stalking Sam. Based on what evidence? Emily's smile was sharp. Based on evidence they're going to create tomorrow night. They want you to come to Janelle's house for what they're calling a reconciliation meeting. But it's really a trap. They're going to record you, edit it to make you look threatening, and use it to get the restraining order. Frank, who'd been listening from his spot at my kitchen table, whistled low. Ambitious. And stupid. Why stupid? Emily asked. Because they're assuming your dad is the same clueless guy they've been manipulating for months. They have no idea he's been documenting everything they've done. I felt a familiar surge of anger, The same feeling I'd had in the boxing ring when an opponent thought I was beaten and let their guard down. It was time to remind everyone why underestimating me was a mistake. "Set up the meeting," I told Emily. "Tell them I'll be there." "Dad, trust me, it's time to end this." Saturday evening, I drove to Janelle's house in the suburbs, a modest 2-story that she'd gotten in her divorce settlement. Frank was parked across the street in an unmarked car, recording everything. Emily was at a friend's house, safely out of the way, but monitoring the situation through the surveillance equipment Frank had helped us set up. I knocked on the front door, and Janelle answered, putting on a performance of concerned friendship. "David, thank you for coming. Sam really wants to work this out." "I hope so. I miss my wife." She led me into the living room, where Sam was waiting on the couch, looking appropriately sad and conflicted. Matt was nowhere to be seen, which was smart since his presence would have blown their cover story. "David," Sam said, standing up to give me an awkward hug, "I'm so glad you came. I'd do anything to save our marriage." For the next 20 minutes, they ran their script perfectly. Sam talked about how much she missed me, how she wanted to work things out, how she just needed me to understand her perspective. Janelle played the supportive friend, occasionally steering the conversation toward topics designed to make me look controlling or unreasonable. I played my part too, acting like the desperate husband who'd do anything to get his wife back. I even managed to work up some tears when Sam talked about how distant we'd become. Finally, Janelle moved in for the kill. "David, there's something we need to discuss. Sam's been feeling unsafe." "Unsafe? What do you mean?" "Your behavior lately has been concerning. The Facebook posts, the way you've been watching her, following her." "I haven't been following anyone." "You showed up at the restaurant where she was having dinner," Sam said, right on cue. "You've been driving by my office. You called my boss." None of that was true, but I could see where this was heading. They were building a case for harassment, creating a narrative that would justify the restraining order. "I think you need help," Janelle continued. "Professional help, and I think Sam needs space while you get that help." "What kind of space?" "Complete space. No contact, no visits, no attempts to see her until you've addressed your issues." I let the silence stretch, playing the part of the man realizing his marriage was really over. Finally, I spoke. "Is that what you want, Sam? No contact at all?" Sam looked appropriately torn. "I think it's best, for both of us." "I see." I stood up, walking to the window as if I needed a moment to compose myself. In reality, I was signaling Frank that it was time for the next phase. "There's just one thing I don't understand," I said, turning back to face them. "What's that?" Janelle asked. "I don't understand how you could think I'm that stupid." The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Sam and Janelle exchanged glances, suddenly realizing that something had gone wrong with their script. "David," Sam started. "No, let me finish. See, I've been doing some research over the past few weeks, learning about asset manipulation, conspiracy to commit fraud, and the legal definition of extortion." Janelle stood up, her friendly mask slipping. "I think you should leave." "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Not until we've had a real conversation about what's been happening here." I pulled out my phone and started playing one of Emily's recordings, the conversation where Sam and Janelle discussed hiding assets and paying Matt to seduce her. The blood drained from both their faces as they heard their own voices discussing their crimes in detail. "You've been recording us?" Sam whispered. "Actually, you've been recording yourselves. Funny how people forget that teenagers exist when they're planning felonies." Janelle was reaching for her phone, probably to call Matt or her lawyer, but I held up my hand. "I wouldn't bother. Matt's not coming to save you. In fact, he's been very helpful in documenting your little conspiracy. You're lying." I played another recording, this one of Matt describing how Janelle had hired him and what his instructions had been. The sound of his voice admitting to the seduction plot hit Sam like a physical blow. She sank back onto the couch, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. You knew. This whole time you knew. I knew you were cheating. I figured out the rest along the way. Did you really think you could steal everything I've worked for and I'd just roll over and take it? Janelle had recovered some of her composure. You can't prove any of this. Those recordings won't hold up in court. Maybe not, but they'll be very interesting when I post them online. I'm thinking Facebook first, then YouTube, maybe TikTok. Emily's generation is so good with social media. You wouldn't dare. I smiled, and this time it was genuine. Lady, you tried to destroy my life, steal my money, and frame me for abuse. What exactly do you think I wouldn't dare? The front door opened, and Frank walked in, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. Sorry I'm late, Frank said. Traffic was terrible. Sam looked back and forth between me and the cops. What's happening? What's happening, one of the officers said, is that you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, asset manipulation, and attempted extortion. The next few minutes were chaos. Janelle tried to run, making it as far as the kitchen before the second officer caught her. Sam just sat on the couch, staring at her hands as they read her rights. As they were loading both women into separate police cars, Sam looked at me through the window. I never meant for it to go this far, she said. Yes, you did, I replied. You meant for it to go exactly this far. You just thought you were smarter than everyone else. The police cars drove away, leaving me standing in Janelle's driveway with Frank. Emily pulled up a few minutes later, having gotten a ride from her friend's parents. Is it over? She asked. It's over. She hugged me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. What happens now? Emily asked. Frank answered before I could. Now the legal system takes over. With the evidence we've gathered, they're looking at serious prison time. The asset recovery will take a while, but David should get everything back, plus damages. And Matt? Matt's going to testify against them in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'll probably do some community service and pay a fine, but he won't see jail time. We stood there for a moment, looking at Janelle's house. Tomorrow, the neighbors would start talking. The story would spread through the suburban gossip network like wildfire. Within a week, everyone in town would know what had happened. Are you okay with people knowing? Emily asked. I thought about it for a moment. A month ago, the idea of my private life becoming public entertainment would have horrified me. But now, after everything that had happened, I found I didn't care. Let them talk, I said. At least now they'll be talking about the truth. We got in our cars and drove home, leaving the scene of the crime behind us. As we pulled into our driveway, Emily looked at me with something that might have been pride. You know what the best part is? She said. What's that? They never saw it coming. Right up until the end, they thought you were just the dumb husband who didn't know what was happening. She was right. Sam and Janelle had been so convinced of their own superiority, so certain that they were dealing with someone beneath their level, that they'd never considered the possibility that I might be smarter than they gave me credit for. It was a mistake that cost them everything. The next morning, I woke up in my own house, in my own bed, for the first time in weeks. The sun was shining through the windows, and I could hear Emily making breakfast in the kitchen. My phone had dozens of messages, friends who'd heard about the arrests, neighbors who wanted to know if the rumors were true, even a few reporters who'd gotten wind of the story. I ignored them all. There would be time for explanations later, time for interviews and legal proceedings and all the messy aftermath of destroyed lives. For now, I just wanted to enjoy the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Sam had wanted to play games with a man she thought was beneath her. She'd underestimated me, manipulated me, and tried to destroy everything I'd built. She'd learned, too late, that underestimating people is a dangerous game. And I'd learned something too. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting smart.